once, I do it again. Add it up, bankroll, euro, peso.
Hey guys, so we've got really, really big troubles ahead in the housing market. Something that has actually kind of put a knot in my stomach because generally I would like to be able to give people advice on which direction to go. And right now, I do not have good advice for anybody. I mean, I've actually looked at some things now that have actually really put some fear inside of me. And you might be surprised whenever I tell you it's not actually a crash in the housing market that I'm concerned with, but the idea that prices really could keep escalating. And I don't know if there's going to be a slowdown to this. I don't know what to say to you guys. So you've probably already heard it, but I would like to bring something to your attention if you haven't. And even if you have heard this, stick around because maybe you'll get an idea of where my head's at right now. So we know that we're in the middle of a housing crisis. This has kind of been going on, and then with the virus that came around, it kind of amped things up, right? So if you look at the number of homes sold and the prices that they're going for, it would seem that everything on paper is doing just fine. But if we take a closer look, you can actually see just how manipulated the housing market is. And the real question here is, how deep does this go and what's the end game? Two of the world's largest financial institutions, JP Morgan and BlackRock, have been on a buying frenzy. They've actually been buying up residential homes like crazy since the Great Recession. In fact, the Fed looked to financial institutions like BlackRock to stop what would have been a total free fall in the housing crash that we had. They were essentially put in place to soften the blow. If they were not put in place, the Great Recession at that time would have been the greatest depression. And this is actually what's staring us right in the face right now. But there's so many manipulated pieces to this to kind of paint a picture over it and make everything look great. And in reality, if we really do some digging, things are not great for the average American and for the middle class, which is rapidly shrinking. Things are a little different now, though. When BlackRock and JP Morgan made a deal with the Fed to buy foreclosed homes from Freddie Mae, Fannie Mac, back in the recession period, they were buying homes up for pennies on the dollar. I'm sure these institutions are still grabbing land and homes. Yes, it's land and homes that they are buying. And I'm sure that they're still buying up these homes for really cheap at courthouse auctions. But we've actually heard reports that BlackRock is willing to pay 20 to 50% over market value. And this isn't just for one home at a time. They are actually buying up whole neighborhoods, whole subdivisions, right? So my question here is, are institutional buyers buying up these homes to delay another collapse, or are they trying to prevent one from happening altogether? The numbers here are just crazy. In Houston alone, 24% of the homes purchased have been sold to institutional investors. And this number just keeps climbing. After some digging that I've done, it keeps going up. The housing boom that we're going through now is completely different from before, though. The Great Recession was caused from loose lending or kind of uncontrolled lending, whereas today, that seems to be no problem for large institutions. They can buy up these homes with cash, no problem, or get the best interest rate available if they wanted to finance it. Now, to kind of really put this in perspective, BlackRock alone has $10 billion a year surplus. With these numbers, they could essentially put 5 to 20% down and rack up mortgages on 130,000 to maybe 170,000 homes a year. But if they're buying in all cash, they could still buy up 30,000 homes a year. That's a big number. That's a big deal. And these homes are not being bought to flip a few years later. They're being bought to keep as rentals forever. It's not going to go away. Some of you might roll your eyes here, but remember when the World Economic Forum said that you'll own nothing and be happy? Well, I've got something for you. Would you be surprised if I told you that the CEO of BlackRock, Larry Fink, is also on the board of trustees for the World Economic Forum? Hey, maybe that means nothing and I'm just connecting dots that don't exist, right? I think not, but it's worth looking into. Either way, we should all see this as a problem. We are quickly becoming a nation of renters. The middle class is rapidly shrinking. Millennials are broke, and older generations have their retirements, 401ks, and pension funds wrapped up in a black box of unknown investments. Basically, just trusting someone else, trusting some institution that they know what's best for you. And for a long time, that was the way to go. People were successful, but people really need to get an idea of where their investments are wrapped up into. With the inability to be able to buy a home, the middle class will completely dissolve, the poor will become poorer, and will have no chance of sharing wealth with our kids or grandkids. For a long time, owning a home was thought to be one of the easiest ways to create generational wealth, because you actually have something that you can pass on to your kids, right? As long as you can pay those property taxes, you can maintain that home. All of this info is telling me that this housing crisis could go one of two ways. Homes keep soaring in price with no chance of slowing down, which seems to be the likely thing right now, or the older generation is hit with a controlled crash. I do think that when it comes, because looking at what's going on, I mean, you've got Fed-funded, Fed frontmen coming in and buying up residential homes, right? This could go on forever because they can just keep printing the money. Maybe uncontrolled inflation is what they've wanted all along. You know, we can debate that all day long. I can't tell you for sure, but that looks like the direction that things are going in. My bigger concern here is that if there is this controlled crash, it ensures that older generations can't hold on to the properties that they own today. With their pension funds, IRAs, 401ks, possibly even Social Security being tied up in this buying frenzy, personally, I believe that it would only take a 30% crash to wipe out most of the older generations. The cost of living has just become too high to maintain. So even if on paper your investments look good today, what would it be tomorrow if 30% of that was wiped out and gone? Can you handle those expenses? These are all things that we need to think about. And a 30% crash is relatively conservative compared to what could come. That's extremely conservative. But it's enough to where it does wipe out a major portion of wealth between the middle class and the upper middle class, right? We also know that people actually love to use home equity lines of credit. Most of these people would also be wiped out in a crash, as their homes would likely be underwater. So all of this is really concerning to me. I'm really concerned as to what happens. I mean, millennials cannot afford to get into homes, but older generations that actually maybe have accumulated some wealth today, if there was a hard enough hit, I'm not sure that they'll have it tomorrow. I mean, we're looking at a flood of bankruptcies possibly coming in just because the cost of living becomes too high. All of this is just insane. And you have to know, like, it's coming mainly from these giant institutions. I mean, BlackRock they are one of the largest out there. Trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars are wrapped up. They can take the hit, but we can't. So either way, the institutional buyers and the Fed-funded front groups win. At the end of the day, they get to win because they can maintain everything, right? All I've got to say is get ready for anything because I don't know what comes next. Gold, silver, food, water, defense. If you're not in a position right now where you can go out and buy a home, which I don't think it would be smart right now. The prices are so high, there's no point in getting in a bidding war. There's definitely no point to trying to go and buy one if you're in an area where these institutional buyers are coming in. It makes no sense. And they're buying land as well, guys. Like, land is wrapped up in this too. If I had any kind of advice that I could give, of course, I just mentioned gold, silver, food, water, defense. Things will get pretty crazy. Remember, crime rates are already high enough. They're going to get a lot higher if people are really struggling. So you need to be ready for those things. And a little bit of advice that I can give, if you can find some really cheap land, I don't even think it needs to be that desirable. I'm literally talking some cheap land, maybe an acre, maybe 2 acres, that you can just pay in cash somewhere. at least you know that you have somewhere that you do own and you can put a small home on it or build in the future if that's possible. But because we don't know which direction these things are going in, that might be the best option for some of us out there. So let me know what you guys think. Do you think that this is controlled? Kind of a controlled demolition, like a train coming to a crash? It's just kind of slowly happening in front of you. Do you think that they're doing whatever they can to actually prop up this system and make sure that it doesn't come down? And also, greatest wealth transfer on earth happening today. This has something to do with that. A nation of renters will not have any wealth. So just let me know what you think in the comments below. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Remember, once we get to a certain point of subscribers, I can actually do community post. I can let you guys know exactly what I'm working on next. And hopefully YouTube will even push the videos out a little bit more so we can get this info out to people. There's a lot of people living in La La Land. Those that watch this channel are not. So thank you guys. Thanks for being here, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye, guys.
I do it again. Add it up.